7 children boarded a school bus on October 15th, 2004, but they never came home. And 20 years later, someone mailed back one of their backpacks. Still clean, still packed, and still cold to the touch. But that's not the strangest part of what happened in the small town of Millbrook. Millbrook, population 3,847. The kind of place where everyone knows everyone, where children ride their bikes without locks, and where the most exciting thing that happens is the annual Corn Festival. Every morning at 7:15 a.m., bus route 23 would make its rounds. 7 children, all between the ages of 8 and 12, would climb aboard. Sarah Chun, the quiet artist who always sat in the third row. Tommy Rodriguez, the class clown who made everyone laugh. The Morrison twins, Emma and Ethan, inseparable as always. Little Katie Sullivan, only 8, with her bright yellow backpack. Marcus Thompson, the boy who knew everything about dinosaurs. And finally, Lily Henderson, 12 years old, who always helped the younger kids with their seatbelts. Bus driver Harold Jennings had been driving that route for 23 years. He knew every pothole, every stop sign, every face that climbed aboard his bus. October 15th started like any other day. The children boarded at their usual stops. Sarah sketched in her notebook. Tommy made paper airplanes. The twins shared their breakfast. Nothing seemed unusual. But at 7:32 a.m., something changed. The school security cameras show Harold's bus leaving the final pickup point on Maple Street. The children were all aboard, backpacks stowed, ready for another day of learning. But the bus never arrived at Millbrook Elementary. It never reached the next intersection. It simply vanished. When the school called Harold's radio at 8:15 a.m., there was only static. When they called his cell phone, it went straight to voicemail. By 8:30 a.m., panic had set in. 7 children and their bus driver had disappeared without a trace. Within hours, Millbrook transformed into a search headquarters. FBI agents arrived from the state capitol. Helicopter search teams combed the forests. 9 units followed every possible trail. The local police station became a war room, with maps covering every wall and officers working around the clock. Detective Maria Santos led the investigation. She had seen missing person cases before, but nothing like this. 7 children don't just vanish, she told reporters. Someone knows something. Someone saw something. The parents were interviewed for hours. Each conversation was more heartbreaking than the last. Mrs. Chin showed investigator Sarah's artwork from the day before, a crayon drawing of a dark forest with the words, "Don't go in there," scribbled in the corner. Mr. Rodriguez mentioned that Tommy had been having nightmares about a man in a gray coat. The Morrison parents revealed that their twins had been acting strange all week, whispering to each other in a language they didn't recognize. But it was Katie Sullivan's mother who provided the most chilling detail. The night before the disappearance, Katie had packed her backpack with 3 days' worth of clothes, her favorite stuffed animal, and a note that read, "For the long trip." When her mother asked about it, Katie simply said, "He told me to be ready." Search teams scoured 200 square miles of forest. They dragged the lake. They checked every abandoned building, every cave, every possible hiding spot. Days turned into weeks. The only clue they found was Tommy's blue lunchbox, discovered 3 miles from the bus route, sitting perfectly clean on a tree stump. Inside the lunchbox was a handwritten note on age paper. "The children are safe. They are learning. They will return when they are ready. Do not look for them in the place where time moves differently." The handwriting didn't match any of the children's. It didn't match Harold Jennings. The FBI handwriting experts had never seen anything like it. Each letter was perfectly formed, as if written by someone who had practiced the same message 1,000 times. After 6 months of searching, the case was officially classified as cold. The FBI packed up their equipment. The search helicopters stopped flying. The volunteers went home. But the families never stopped hoping. The town of Millbrook was never the same. Parents no longer let their children walk to school alone. The annual Corn Festival was canceled. Businesses closed as families moved away, unable to bear the constant reminders of what they had lost. Strange rumors began to circulate. Hikers reported seeing children playing in the deep woods, but when they approached, no one was there. Some claimed to hear school bus engines echoing through the forest at odd hours. Others whispered about government experiments, about secret military bases, about things that couldn't be explained by conventional logic. Mary Sullivan, Katie's mother, became obsessed with the case. She spent every weekend driving the old bus route, searching for clues the authorities had missed. She printed thousands of missing person flyers and plastered them across 3 counties. Her husband begged her to stop, to accept that Katie was gone, but Mary refused to give up. "My daughter is out there," she would tell anyone who would listen. "She's waiting for me to find her, and I will find her." Detective Santos retired in 2010, but she kept the case files at home. Every few months, she would spread them across her kitchen table, looking for something, anything, that might have been overlooked. The handwritten note haunted her dreams. What did it mean by the place where time moves differently? On October 15, 2024, exactly 20 years after the disappearance, a hiker named David Park was exploring an unmapped section of the Millbrook Forest Reserve. He had been following what appeared to be an old logging road when he stumbled upon something that made his blood run cold. Hidden beneath decades of overgrown vegetation, almost completely swallowed by the forest, was a school bus. The same yellow school bus that had vanished 2 decades earlier. Bus number 23. Harold Jennings' bus. David's hands shook as he called the police. Within hours, the forest was alive with investigators once again. Detective Santos, now 68 and officially retired, drove 4 hours to see the bus for herself. What they found inside defied all explanation. The interior of the bus was perfectly preserved. The seats showed no signs of decay. The windows were clean, and sitting in the exact positions where the children had been seated 20 years earlier were their backpacks, Sarah's art supplies, Tommy's comic books, the Morrison twins' matching lunchboxes, Katie's bright yellow backpack with her stuffed elephant still inside. But it was what they found in the driver's seat that sent chills through the investigation team. Harold Jennings' clipboard with the daily route sheet from October 15th, 2004. At the bottom of the page, in that same perfect handwriting they had seen before, was a new message. "The lesson is complete. The children have learned well. One more remains." In the back of the bus, hidden beneath one of the seats, investigators found a small digital voice recorder. The device was modern, certainly not from 2004. When they played it back, they heard children's voices, the same voices of families had been longing to hear for 20 years. The recording was brief, but every word was clear. He said we wouldn't grow up, that we'd stay together forever. We don't want to leave, but we miss home. Tell Mama I'm okay. Tell her I'm still 8, and I'll always be 8. The teacher says one of us can go back, but only one. We chose her. She's the strongest. She'll remember everything. The voices faded, replaced by a sound none of them could identify, like wind chimes made of glass or children laughing underwater. Then silence. Inside Katie's backpack, wrapped in tissue paper, was a pocket watch. It was antique, ornate, and when opened, it contained a photograph. The same 7 children who had vanished 20 years earlier, but they hadn't aged a day. They looked exactly as they had on the morning they disappeared, down to the same clothes, the same hairstyles, the same innocent smiles. At the bottom of the photograph, in that familiar handwriting, were the words, "Time is a river that flows in many directions. Some currents lead home." 3 days after the bus was discovered, Detective Santos received an email at her personal address. The sender was listed as Lily H. 2004. Lily Henderson, the 12-year-old who had helped the younger children with their seatbelts. The email contained a single attachment, a photograph. The photograph showed 6 children standing in what appeared to be a classroom, but not a classroom from any school Detective Santos had ever seen. The walls were made of tree bark, the ceiling was a canopy of leaves, and the desks were carved from stone. Sarah was there, still sketching. Tommy was there, still making his friends laugh. The Morrison twins stood side by side, just as they always had. Marcus held a book about dinosaurs. Katie clutched her stuffed elephant, but Lily was not in the photograph. In her place stood a tall figure in a gray coat, his face obscured by a shadow. His hand rested on Katie's shoulder in a gesture that seemed both protective and possessive. The email contained a message. Detective Santos, I know you never stopped looking for us. I want you to know that my friends are safe. They are happy. They are learning things that no school could ever teach them. But I couldn't stay. I couldn't forget the world we came from. I'm coming home, but I need your help. He doesn't want me to leave. He says I know too much. Meet me at the old oak tree on Maple Street tomorrow at midnight. Come alone. I'll tell you everything. Lily. Detective Santos stared at the email for hours. Every instinct told her it was a trap, a cruel hoax. But the details were too specific, too accurate. Only Lily would know about the oak tree where the children used to play while waiting for the bus. Only Lily would know that Detective Santos had kept working the case long after everyone else had given up. The next night, Detective Santos drove to Maple Street. The oak tree stood exactly where it had 20 years earlier, though larger now, its branches reaching toward the stars. She waited in the darkness, every shadow making her heart race. At 11:58 p.m., she heard footsteps. A figure emerged from the darkness, a young woman, perhaps 20 years old, wearing clothes that seemed to shimmer in the moonlight. But her face was unmistakably Lily Henderson, older, but still carrying the same determined expression she had worn as a child. You came, Lily said, her voice carrying an otherworldly quality. I wasn't sure you would. Lily, is it really you? Where have you been? Where are the others? Lily's expression grew sad. They're still there, detective, in the place where time moves differently. They're still children, and they always will be. He promised them they would never have to grow up, never have to face the pain of becoming adults. They chose to stay. But you didn't. I couldn't. I remembered too much about the real world, about my family, about growing up and making choices and living a real life. He tried to make me forget, but I held on to the memories. And now he's angry. As Lily spoke, the air around him began to change. The temperature dropped. The shadows grew longer. And in the distance, Detective Santos could hear the sound of a school bus engine starting. He's coming for me, Lily whispered. He doesn't want me to tell you the truth, but you need to know the children aren't missing, detective. They're chosen, and he's not finished choosing. The sound of the bus grew closer. Its headlights appeared through the trees, casting long shadows across the street. But this wasn't the same bus they had found in the forest. This bus seemed to glow with an inner light, and through its windows, Detective Santos could see the faces of the 6 missing children, still young, still innocent, still trapped. Tell their families, Lily said, backing away from the approaching bus. Tell them their children are safe, but they're not coming home. Not unless someone else takes their place. What do you mean? He needs 7, detective. He always needs 7. I escaped, so now he's looking for a replacement. He's looking for another child who dreams of never growing up, who fears the pain of becoming an adult. And he's very, very patient. The bus stopped in front of them. The door opened with a hydraulic hiss. Inside, Detective Santos could see Harold Jennings behind the wheel, his face blank, his eyes reflecting the strange inner light of the bus. Don't let him take anyone else, Lily pleaded. Watch the children. Protect them. And whatever you do, don't let them get on the bus. As the bus door began to close, Lily suddenly smiled. Thank you for never giving up on us, detective. Thank you for believing. The bus pulled away, disappearing into the forest. But Lily remained, standing in the moonlight, no longer the frightened child who had boarded bus route 23 20 years earlier, but not quite the adult she should become either. She was something in between, something that had seen too much, learned too much, and escaped from a place where time itself was a prisoner. Detective Santos reported the encounter to the FBI, but they dismissed it as the delusions of a woman who had been too close to the case for too long. The official report stated that the bus found in the forest was a separate incident, unrelated to the original disappearance. But Mary Sullivan, Katie's mother, believed every word. She began monitoring the missing children reports in neighboring counties. She started a support group for parents of missing children. And she watched, always watched, for signs of man in a gray coat approaching children with promises of eternal childhood. Because somewhere in the deep woods, in a place where time moves differently, 6 children are still attending school. They're still learning. They're still growing in ways that have nothing to do with age. And their teacher is still looking for a 7th student. The question isn't whether you believe the story. The question is, would you step onto that bus if it meant never growing old, but never going home again? If you want to hear the rest of Lily's story, what she learned in that place beyond time, and why she was the only one strong enough to escape, let me know, because there's more to this mystery than anyone imagined. And sometimes, the most dangerous mysteries are the ones that offer you exactly what you think you want. This wasn't an accident. It was a choice. And somewhere in a town not unlike yours, another child is about to face the same decision. The bus is always looking for new passengers. The question is, will you be watching when it arrives?